unceded First Nation and the Chippewas of Saugeen First Nation. We also recognize the Métis, whose ancestors shared this land and these waters. We extend our gratitude to all Anishinaabe and Métis people and their descendants, past, present, and future, who continue to care for and inhabit these lands and tend these waters. Committee of Adjustment is meeting today to review an application as it applies to certain lands in the municipality of Meaford. I'd like to introduce the members of this committee. To my far right, Mr. David Cramp, Mr. Ed Ormsby, Mr. Cam Hall, who's the vice chair of this committee. To my far left is Mr. Peter Tovell, Gabe Pucci, who is the secretary treasurer of this committee, and my name is Terry Williams. I am the chair. The municipal staff in attendance today are Denise McCarl, manager of planning services, Meredith Gillespie, planner, and Gabe Pucci, who is development services assistant. This committee is legally required to make decisions that conform to the Provincial Planning Act, as well as the existing county and local official plans. Based on these documents, the municipal planning staff have prepared a detailed report and recommendations for this committee. In addition, municipal policy and procedures encourage the community to share their thoughts about a proposed application. Your comments will help us make informed decisions on all of these applications. For those who have pre-registered for today's meeting or are in attendance, you will have the opportunity to speak. I will call upon you at the appropriate time. Should you wish to do so, the applicant will also have the opportunity to respond to any comments or questions raised by either the committee members or the public. Anyone wishing to receive notice of this decision on any application being heard today will need to contact the secretary treasurer via email at planning@meaford.ca or by phone 519-538-1060 extension 1120. Gabe, are there any other changes to the agenda?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no any other changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Has the committee members had an opportunity to review the minutes of the last meeting? The changes necessary? Accept the minutes. Motion moved by Mr. David Cramp and seconded by Cam Hall. All in favor? Motion is carried. Before we begin with the public meetings, I would ask that the committee members disclose any pecuniary interest or in the general nature thereof of any of the files that are being presented today. Is there any? None? Seeing none, we will commence with the public meeting. This is the meeting of the Committee of Adjustment to consider an application for a certificate of cancellation under Section 45 of the Planning Act for the lands known as 83341 Side Road 6 in the municipality of Meaford. Denise, would you please summarize the application and provide us with any comments that have been received?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a type of application that we don't see very often, and this is the first one I've had since the Planning Act changed. And it's a very similar type of process to a validation of title. It's a tool under the Planning Act that's been enabled by the government that doesn't have any kind of public process. It's more of a Planning Act rule tool, I'll call it, because the Planning Act is very convoluted. It has some very complicated rules. This would allow somebody to undo a severance, which could be done for a variety of reasons, including someone just doesn't want the severance that they created if an unusual severance was created. But I'll backtrack into the history of why we're here today, because some of the committee members weren't here when the original severance was done for the lot addition, not the original severance that this certificate of cancellation is speaking to, but the lot addition from 2022. So that application is dealing with a property that where they actually started building their garage on their neighbor's property and then worked with their neighbor to purchase that piece of land. There really isn't a lot of area on their property to build the garage. So there wasn't an opportunity for them to just move it over. They also had some other issues on their property, including a holding H4 symbol, which deals with the provincially significant wetland that's adjacent, and some other conservation authority issues. So what they did to resolve the garage that was kind of underway and couldn't get completed because it was not on their land, which got found out, like I said, after the fact, after the building was underway, it was to apply to do a lot addition, to buy a piece of their neighbor's land, a strip. So that's a little bit more visible on the sketch on page 6 of the report. So that's the second page of the decision. You might be able to see the little strip of land there under the applicant's sketch. It's a very small area, but the difficulty in this case is we now need that to merge. So they got permission for that, and now that little strip has to merge. In this particular case, the lot that the Carvalhos have was previously severed from the farm. And some of you may remember that once you sever land, you can't just merge it back to the original property. And the rules under the Planning Act, we always called it's Teflon law. The lands won't merge again. So if a farmer has 2 lots in the old days, they would merge together if they were under the same ownership, unless they were severed from one another. In this case, to get around that, there's a couple of different ways they can do it. And under the Planning Act changes a couple of years ago, one way they can do it is apply for this certificate of cancellation. I'm not entirely sure, I'll be honest, in how this tool works in all the ways, but the lawyer has requested it. We asked if they need this, and they said yes, that this would help with the merger. And so it's really up to them to apply this appropriately. And the only way to get permission to do a certificate of cancellation is to make application to the Committee of Adjustment. So basically, in a nutshell, the purpose of this is to allow the lands to merge as required under the provisional consent granted by the committee last year, because we don't want to create a new lot of that little strip. We want it to add on to the Carvalho's land. So there's other ways that this could be done, and some of them are more onerous than this. And so I think the lawyer would like to use this tool as newly created in the last probably 2 years, year and a half, as a tool that they can apply for. If there's any specifics about, what was going on this property before or anything like that, we can provide that additional background. Otherwise, it's more of a technical exercise to allow the lawyer to register the lot as the newly amalgamated piece, to then allow them to continue building this garage, because actually they've been kind of stuck in limbo for some time. And anyone who's on the committee last term will remember this file. They had this half-built garage, and they're still in the same boat. So they've done everything else. They've got the H4 removed, and all the other conditions are met. And this is the last piece to allow them to register this. So if that helps.
Does any committee member have any questions? And if you cancel the original severance, does that not apply to the whole property that was severed?
That's a great question, Mr. Chair. I had assumed it always would. However, I think the way that it is listed on here of the certificate of cancellation, the lawyer has not vetted this, so it may be reworded slightly. This is the placeholder version that has been created in a guide from a law office that to help us administer some of the Planning Act changes. There's a guide out there that one of the law offices produced to say, here's how you would use a certificate of cancellation and why. So we will allow, if the committee agrees to this in concept, then the lawyer will, he may amend this certificate to make it work so that, yeah, the Carvalho's land doesn't merge with the Johnson's land, because that's not the point of this. It's just to allow these two pieces. So it may be that he's applying for it just on the strip that the severance applies to. One of the other ways they used to do this, and I don't know if it happened with this committee that you saw it, but one of the other ways that this could be done would be a land dedication, which they called a postage stamp. They dedicate a 1 foot piece of land to the municipality that gets added to basically to the road, which breaks that parcel, kind of breaks the legal description of the severed parcel enough that allows that piece to add on. Apparently that one's a little bit more difficult to do than this process. So I think that's why they tried this. So I'm going to leave it from a legal perspective. I'm going to leave it up to the lawyer for the applicant to ensure they're doing it correctly. Because I think that will be imperative.
Who will make the legal opinion of this letter?
So to that, we only approve the ideas in principle. We don't provide any legal opinion on it. And it's really up to the owner's lawyer to do that. They're the ones who create the new deeds or the parcels. And if they do it incorrectly, and they do sometimes do it incorrectly, it sometimes gets pushed back on them. Hey, you made a mistake. And it'll get fixed and then redone. So sometimes land registry will send something back for fix up. So they will be the ones. So it's Andrew Drury is the lawyer for the applicant that is working on this file, and it will be on him to make sure that it's done correctly.
Thank you. Yes.
Just a quick comment through you to staff. Do we have, we used to have a thing called lot line adjustment, which seemed to be a much simpler process.
So thank you for that question through you, Mr. Chair. That's exactly what this was. The original application, I think, what did I say? B20 2022 was a lot line adjustment or lot addition. They're basically the same thing. The problem is because the land was previously severed from the farm, you can't just add another piece to it. It just won't allow that. So there has to be a way to change the legal description or do something on the severed parcel to allow it to accept this additional piece of land. If this had been severed from a different property originally, this wouldn't be an issue, but it's because this was severed off of the parent farm that's now giving them another sliver, basically. So it was an original lot line adjustment. And this tool is meant to just allow it to merge and not become a standalone strip of land.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The recommendation is that the Committee of Adjustment of the Municipality of Meaford approve the issuance of a certificate of cancellation for the lands known municipally as 397581 10th concession. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the recommendation? And to accept the recommendation as read. Ed and Peter. Next steps is there any appeal period on this?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So no, there's no appeal period. It's really just a
It's
technical.
up to the lawyers.
Yeah, so it's up to the lawyers. And if there's anything new, any new information, we can just report back with some additional information for you. Like if the questions that have been raised, we can ask those and just have it for our own knowledge about how these work. If the committee would like to have that feedback loop, we can ask the lawyer those questions.
I would be interested to see what the final letter looks like and how much it got changed from this placeholder letter, if that is possible. Thank you. Is there any other business before we close this meeting? Scheduled for October the 27th.